You ever had a season where it felt like life hit you from every direction? For me, it was when I got demoted from captain, along with tearing my rotator cuff and getting surgery in a matter of weeks after getting demoted. Lost rank, lost income, lost identity, then surgery, a sling, months away from work, and that's exactly why Failing Forward by John C. Maxwell. This was the second time I've gone through this book, narrated by Maxwell himself, which is always a plus. First time I read it, I thought it was a book about success. The second time, I realized it's really a book about what to do after you've failed. One of the early lessons that stood out to me is Maxwell's warning about the fear cycle. It's on page 38 from the book. Fear creates inaction. Inaction creates doubt. Doubt creates more fear, and before long, you're stuck. Looking back, that's exactly where I found myself after my demotion. Instead of asking what I could have learned, I was focused on what I lost. Maxwell reminds us that failure isn't the enemy, because failure can teach you. Fear just keeps you stuck. In chapter 8, to excel, do what you do well. One of the best stories in the book involve Linda Eggers. She made mistakes, but what impressed Maxwell wasn't that she failed. It is what she did afterward. She owned it. She apologized to her current employer, and she looked in the mirror, realized that she needed to make changes, not her circumstances, not other people, herself. It was her attitude. That's a lesson I needed, because after a major setback, it's easy to blame circumstances. It's harder to ask, what do I need to change? Maxwell says, look first at what you can change in yourself before trying to alter your circumstances, especially when you're rebuilding. Another section from chapter 8 that really stood out to me, not realizing what you want is a problem of knowledge. Not pursuing what you want is a problem of motivation. Not achieving what you want is a problem of persistence. That last one hits me hard. Persistence. Because sometimes success isn't about being smarter. It's about refusing to quit. Chapter 9. This may be my favorite chapter. The title alone got my attention. Get over yourself. Barbara Ward said, don't get stuck inside your own ego, because it'll become a prison in no time flat. That quote punched me in the face. Ego played a role in my downfall. I liked being captain. I liked the title. I liked the respect. And when it disappeared, I realized how much of my identity was attached to it. Maxwell's message is simple. If you want to overcome failure, you've got to get over yourself. The perfect example is David Robinson. Before winning the championship in 1999, Robinson had already accomplished almost everything an individual player could in the NBA. Rookie of the Year, rebounding champion, offensive player of the year, scoring champion, league MVP, named one of the 50 greatest NBA players in history. Yet something had changed when Tim Duncan arrived. Robinson made a decision. He stopped worrying about being the star. He started focusing on the team. Avery Johnson described him this way. He's the ultimate team player, the ultimate winner. Robinson essentially said, this is Tim's team now, and I'm fine with that. Think about how rare that is. Most people fight to protect their position. David Robinson sacrificed his ego to help the team win championship, and he became an even greater leader because of it. That lesson applies everywhere. The firehouse, marriage, being a father. If you want to win, you've got to get over yourself. My favorite part of the entire book comes from chapter 9. There's an exercise called What Could Be Worse? Maxwell uses this story of Joseph from the Bible. Joseph was betrayed, sold into slavery, falsely accused, thrown into prison, yet every setback eventually became part of God's plan. Then Maxwell introduces the 10th step in failing forward. Find the benefit in every bad experience. I actually did the exercise, and it changed my outlook. My major setbacks, getting demoted, tearing my rotator cuff, having surgery, being away from work. Then Maxwell asks you to identify benefits that occurred and benefits that might occur. One of my answers was my family. Maybe years from now, my daughters will look back and say, remember that summer Dad was in a sling? He had a beard. He took us to softball. He spent time with us. He was present. That's not something I would have seen if I stayed focused only on what I lost. Sometimes failure forces us to slow down long enough to discover what matters most. Failure reveals who you are. One quote from the book I'll never forget. is from John Killinger. Failure is the greatest opportunity I have to know who I really am. Failure strips away titles, positions, status, recognition. And then you're left with a question. Who am I now? For me, that's been one of the biggest lessons of this season. Another quote Maxwell includes comes from G.K. Chesterton. I'm just going to read it because I'm going to butcher it. I do not believe in a fate that falls on men however they act, but I do believe in a fate that falls on them unless they act. Failure doesn't determine your future. Your response does. This book reminded me that setbacks are not the end. Mistakes are teachers. As Horace Walpole said, in science, mistakes always precede the truth. If you're facing a setback right now, I strongly recommend Failing Forward by John C. Maxwell. Do the exercises, especially the what could be worse exercise. It might change your outlook the same way it changed mine, because failure isn't final. It's just part of the process. And sometimes the biggest failure become the foundation for the greatest growth. I'm still rebuilding, still learning, still failing forward, and maybe you are too.